Good morning. We are on Manage It Critic Monday. It's 9 a.m. So we're live on the Step by Step listening page and also on YouTube and in the and I'll be on Manage It Critic group later. So those who don't know me, I'm Cheryl Andrews. I'm the Step by Step listening founder and I'm also known as the listening detective. And I'm all about helping you to work, learn and live at your best and helping you to understand the core skills and the core models that can really help you to communicate with clarity and confidence what you need. But more importantly, to be able to keep asking until you get it. My apologies if you can hear that bleeping. It looks like I've left my emails open. Let me shut those down. So today I want to talk about compartmentalising because often people say that men are really good at doing this. I'm not convinced it's a gender thing because I'm quite good at compartmentalising things as well. I put things in boxes and I park them and I put them aside. The difference is that I know what works for me is to actually say, right, I'm going to deal with that on that day. And then I can forget about it today and I compartmentalise it. So I want to talk about compartmentalising today. And for you to be curious about compartmentalising for you is like what? And for me, it is, I have this kind of system in my head. It's like a multi-story car park. And I put things in the cars and I drive them up to different levels and I park them there, knowing that I'm going to go up and down this multi-story system, checking in with those things. And sometimes I put them off like 7 years from now and I put them on the 7th floor and go like, if it's still important in 7 years, I'll do it. And sometimes I put it off like 7 days from now and sometimes it's 7 minutes or 7 hours. And so I have this process of this is what needs my attention. And if there's other things grabbing my attention, what works for me is to park them in my metaphorical multi-story car park and I give it a time. And to make sure that my system doesn't get stressed, that I'm going to forget, I have a CRM system and invariably I will put a task in with a clear description of what was going on, what do I need to review. And what's always interesting for me is that it comes back and then I notice whether I have or haven't done it or whether I need to review it. And quite often the ones that I've put off to 7 years from now is that I get to them and obviously it doesn't matter. I don't generally put those in my CRM system. It's usually the ones that are 7 days or next week or next month. And often when I get to them, something's changed and I don't need to do it. But for me, that is my way of letting go of stuff that I don't want to be consuming my thinking right now. When people say let go of stuff, ditch it is one of the things we talk about, do, delegate or ditch. Ditching for me doesn't work, but if I put it off in the future in time, it does. Now, the other danger with compartmentalising is that what I can do, it's almost like it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And so what I've discovered is sometimes I can put them in the, in a box in the boot of this car and I put it up there and a bit like unloading my, having a declutter session, I forget what's there. So one of the dangers of parking information, compartmentalising, is that if we are focusing on work or we are focusing on family or we're focusing on our own health and well-being and we're compartmentalising to make decisions, we can sometimes become unaware of the impact it's having on the other areas of our life. And so one of the dangers of sort of like, literally taking hats off and changing roles, that like now I'm the mum, now I'm the detective, now I'm the wife, and you come into each individual role, each individual situation, and you deal with them in isolation, is that one, when you make decisions, you often are not considering the impact on the other areas of your life. Just need to straighten my hat, no, it's that way. Two, you can often, when you're making a decision, forget that you or not have access to the resources that you have. So I quite often work with people who, when they come to me, they're talking to me about a work problem, or they might be talking to me about a home problem. But when we look at the whole system, the thing that they're trying to solve at home, they often have the solution at work in their skill set. So let me give you an example. I was working with a chap that was really struggling with his teenager, and yet he was the senior executive leader for a team of 20. And so we took the behavior of the teenager and we looked at what skills he had when those sorts of behaviors turned up in the workplace. What did he do? And when he started to unpack how he did that, he was able to transfer those skills at home. Another lady I was working with a few years ago, she was really struggling with motivation and inspiration with her team. She said, oh, but my 3 teenage girls, it's really great. So we looked at what she was doing and she had star charts and things like that, and she thought, oh, that sounds a bit childish. But what was really transferable was that the goals and the recognition were not very visible. They weren't very trackable. So they started to put vision boards up, and they had things that made things visually. And even if the actual team didn't require it, her as the leader and the facilitator of it, when she could see them, she would remember what they'd done well. She would remember what was working. So it was as much for her to come into the conversations differently as it was for the team to recognize what they were doing well. And so the danger of compartmentalizing work and home, and even your own health and well-being, and separating them out, is that when we make decisions or we're trying to solve problems, we've inadvertently exclude, our brain goes, oh, we're not thinking about those right now. And then there's usually loads of gorgeousness, there's loads of resources that we have in the other areas of our life that we can pull forward and make it work in these areas of life. So equally, things like people, most common mistake I see when people are making decisions, they're making decisions that suit everybody else. But they haven't included themselves. So that's another compartmentalizing. They're trying to make sure the children are okay, their husband, their wife, their team, their clients, you know, that social media is working all right. They're making sure everybody else, when they make a decision, it's about keeping everybody happy, but the one person they haven't included in that outcome is themselves. Equally, people who they're making decisions that include themselves and are not consciously aware of the impact it's going to have on other people, they tend to, again, their decisions will work for a certain period, but whenever we're growing, whether we're growing our business, expanding our families, or, you know, whatever's happening, the number of people we've got to consider in our tribe will be changing. If we've only considered ourselves, then we're always going to hit a brick wall. We're going to hit a finite amount of resources we can do, because we are just one person. We only have a certain amount of time. And so if we want to get things done that we either don't have the skills for or we don't have the time for, we're going to need to be able to ask other people for help. And if you are not aware of what's going on for other people, when you make decisions that are really just based on what you want, you're not going to be able to communicate with clarity and confidence in a way that's going to be received by them and can be worked with. So I hope you found today's useful. Thank you. Whoever's joining me, please put your comments below. We're talking about compartmentalizing. If you haven't caught the beginning of the video, I was just sharing my model for compartmentalizing and just talking about when it works and when it doesn't. So for you, thinking about when you make a decision, and we've all used this term compartmentalizing, I'm sure, over the years. Just think about compartmentalizing for you is like what works about it and what doesn't work about it. And with that in mind, I'm going to ask you the normal questions we do on a Monday morning. What would you like to have happen this week? Set yourself up for success, get real clarity of what you want. Notice now when you're asking that question, when you answer it rather, is your response relating to just work? Is it just relating to just home? Is it just relating to you? Is it inclusive of everything that matters to you? And if it is just focused on work, just that quick check of, you know, what happens to family, what happens to you. And mostly the thing to be aware of, it's okay to be really focused and compartmentalized for a period of time. You might decide for a year you're going to focus on a study course, and you're going to, you know, put other things on the back burner. It's just being consciously aware that you're doing it, because otherwise we do this unconsciously. So what would you like to have happen, and be curious about where your attention is within your response. And then for you to get that, how do you need to be? And for you, the answer you've got there, you know, when you think about how you need to be, what kind of resource or support might you need for you to be like that? I look forward to hearing your responses. Please comment below, and I'll speak to you again next week. Speak soon. Bye-bye.